All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Get Started with Cost Tracker by Tempo. So I'm Connor, a learning and onboarding specialist here at Tempo. My main focus today is to maximize the value you get out of these learning sessions. So any feedback or suggestions are welcome. Also presenting today is my teammate, Edna, who will walk us through how to get going with Cost Tracker. So you will hear from her very soon. We've also got product manager, Catherine, who will cover forecasting with Cost Tracker and Planner and what's coming up for Cost Tracker on the roadmap. And we also have development lead, Marc-Andre, and product expert, Susan, who will be answering your questions today. For our topics today, we will begin by quickly highlighting what Cost Tracker by Tempo is and what solutions it provides. We know that the best part of these sessions is getting to see our products in action. So most of our time will be spent demoing the product. We'll start with how to successfully set up for Cost Tracker, how to create a Tempo project for all your data, and how to group these projects into a portfolio. Then we'll look at how forecasting is done in Cost Tracker with the Planner by Tempo integration. After that, Catherine will walk us through our 2023 Cost Tracker roadmap. And finally, we'll finish up today's webinar by answering your questions. Let's get into it. What is Cost Tracker? So Cost Tracker by Tempo is a project tracking tool that allows users to view the financial health of a project at every level. Cost Tracker automatically translates logged time data from timesheets to show how total project and portfolio costs and revenue are tracking towards their respective budgets. It's available only on Jira Cloud. Budgets is our financial tool on Data Center. If you're looking to migrate to cloud, Cost Tracker is the financial tool there. It's easy to set up and use since it gets logged time data from timesheets, and it's leveraged mostly by project and product managers. Projects can easily be created to start building out a portfolio. Then in this portfolio, you can get real-time views of costs, revenues, budgets, and profits that can be securely shared with the necessary individuals in your organization, most often senior management. And Tempo is dedicated to delivering industry-leading strategic portfolio management, or SPM, solutions that go beyond single products. By creating seamless integration combining the power of our impressive suite of products on the Atlassian marketplace, including timesheets, Planner, Cost Tracker, Structure, and Custom Charts by Tempo, we empower you to navigate the complexities of strategic portfolio management. You'll hear more about Cost Tracker's integration with Planner for forecasting later on in this webinar. Here are some common ways that companies leverage the power of Cost Tracker. So many of the common use cases are revenue and expense tracking. So determining the profitability of projects by comparing the revenue from billable hours to the actual costs. Project success analysis. Looking at a project in its entirety, such as labor costs, budgets, expenses, and revenue to see how it performed financially and using that data for future reference, as well as cost capitalization. So reporting on CapEx versus OpEx projects for tax benefits and accounting of labor costs. So generally speaking, Cost Tracker gives organizations the ability to measure progress and profits by leveraging real-time financial metrics. Cost Tracker also provides organizations an accurate reflection of the work being done with the ability to control labor costs and expenses through standardized processes and calculations when creating budgets and monitoring them. This also ensures better overall decision-making and the ability to know when to pivot. So for example, adding more resources, increasing the budget, or decreasing the scope of the project. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Edna to show us how to get set up and start using Cost Tracker. So it's all yours, Edna.
Great, thank you, Connor. I'm just going to share my screen here. So thanks, Connor, again for that introduction. So I'm going to show you today how to get set up to use Cost Tracker, how to create a Tempo project in Cost Tracker, and then how to group multiple Tempo projects into portfolios. To help you understand how Cost Tracker is used, we're going to be following our fictional company called the Apollo Group. They're an environmental consulting agency who are doing a sustainability assessment contract for their client called Lunar Industries. So most of their time on this contract will be billable hours that they'll track in timesheets by Tempo. And they want to track the costs of this contract against their budget, as well as track the revenue from their billable hours. And this is where Cost Tracker comes in. As well, they plan their future work for these contracts using Planner by Tempo. And from this plan time data, they're going to be able to forecast their costs and revenue in Cost Tracker. And Catherine, I'll show you a little bit about that, but Catherine will get into that more. So first off, Cost Tracker has a very lightweight setup. It's if you're used to timesheets, you're going to realize it's way simpler. So really the main thing that you need is to have timesheets installed first. So Cost Tracker is a plugin to timesheets and it can't run on its own because it requires log time data and other team data, team user data from timesheets. You need to grant the Tempo Cost Tracker access permission to anybody who needs to use it. This is usually a smaller group of people than the usual, like if you're used to timesheets or planner, you usually give that to the whole company. But in this case, it's often just a handful of project or account managers or directors. Anybody who needs to create these projects or have access to this kind of financial data. Third, and very importantly, you need to create a JQL filter, a JIRA filter for your Tempo project. This is important because it defines all the data that you want to track in a cost tracker project. So the JQL can be any kind of query that you want. It can include any type of JIRA issues you want, like epics, tasks, stories, anything you want. And can be for multiple projects. You just have to make sure that all the JIRA issues that you need for your Tempo project are included in it. So final step, and this one is optional, but I think it's a good idea to set it up before you get going. And that's to set your cost and billing rates for all the team roles that are used in Cost Tracker. So this is kind of a quick way to get fairly accurate project data for multiple team members at once, right off the bat when you create a team Tempo project. And we'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. So I'm going to go to Tempo here. So the first step, as I said, what you need is to have timesheets installed. And here you see I have some time logged already. So these issues are going to be part of the Tempo, the JIRA filter that I'm going to use for my cost tracker project. I also happen to have Planner installed, and this will be the plan time data will be used for forecasting. And I also have Cost Tracker installed, which obviously you're going to need. So first, I'm going to go to my permissions. I go to the permission overview. Since I'm in Tempo, I can go from here, but you can go your usual JIRA settings. Just click that and to the global permissions. So first off, I want to make sure that I have the Tempo Cost Tracker access permission, and I'm going to grant it to this JIRA user group that I've already created called the Apollo PM. So this is my project managers and the director of the company. So I'm going to add that. And then we see, if I scroll up here, that they have access to that. So that is really important that the right people get access to Cost Tracker. So once you have that, let's go to the filters. You do have to create a JIRA filter before. Here's a really simple one that I have created for contains just the issues in this one JIRA project that I'm working with, but you can have multiple projects, create much more complex JQLs than I have here, but you need to get that set up before you create your Tempo project. So with that, the final thing, and I said this is an optional step, but I like to do it, is go to Cost Tracker. And here you see, since this is my test instance, so I have a whole bunch of projects already created. The first time you open Cost Tracker, it'll be blank, but it will prompt you to create a Tempo project. We'll get into this in a little bit, but I will first go to my global settings. And these settings are based on the team roles. And these team roles actually I've created already in timesheets, so I'm using them already for the team members there. So you don't have to do anything to get these team roles set up, which is pretty great. But what you do need to do is to set a cost rate for each of the team roles. So here I see, I know my environmental manager is gonna, I'm going to have one of those. So I'm going to set that for $90. So that's the current rate that's being set. So when any team members are assigned this role of environmental manager, they're going to have this as their cost rate. So and I make sure to apply changes, which I often forget to do. And sometimes that can take a little while, and you can see how many projects are actually using the global cost rate. So you don't have to use these, but it's kind of a good way to maybe manage your cost rates just off the bat. So because I know we're tracking revenue, I'm going to go to my billing rates and also give my environmental manager a little bit higher rate um, for the billing rates. So that is kind of it for setting up. So as you see, it's really not that much of a setup to do it all, which is kind of great. So once you got that all ready to go, the fun begins, and that starts with creating a Tempo project. So what is this project? It's basically a container for all the data that you want to track in Cost Tracker. For example, I'm going to be tracking like per the contract, but you can also track for whatever kind of a project or contract or whatever you have going on. You can just set it up as you like. So these are the kind of things that you need to think about, and I'm going to show you how to do, is to assign the cost rates to team members to calculate the labor costs. As I showed you, you can set it with the team role, but you can also go down to the individual team member per project and set that cost, and I'll show you how to do that. You can add a project budget to track against, which is pretty good thing to know. You can add project-specific expenses, such as, say, you have equipment or recurring expenses like subscriptions to some apps or even office space rental. Cost Tracker gives you a very visual overview of your project's health, and you're going to see that soon. And an important thing is when you create a Tempo project, you are the project owner. You're the only person who can actually see what's in that project. So the only way others can see is for you to explicitly share it with others. And those other users also need to have the Tempo Cost Tracker access permission. So I will show you how to do that too. And finally, for those, like say, you don't want to give Cost Tracker access to everybody, you can export detailed project data in certain reports. So I'm going to jump back into Tempo and get going on that. So to go back to the home page, you can either click this icon or click projects. Either one will bring you back to this home page. So as I said, these are all the projects that I have on my instance. So the simple thing is to create a Tempo project. So let's get started with that. So this is going to be my lunar sustainability contract. And here's where you check the filter. You can create a filter, I guess, from here, but I already have my way down here, sustainability issues filter. A project can be monetary based, as I have here, or it can be time based. Sometimes you want to do that just say if you want to calculate um, a project that's coming up and you just want to really know the hours, but you don't care about the cost rates yet, you can do that. But I'm going to stick with monetary based, and I'm going to say default rate. This is for all the people who don't have say a team role defined yet. If you don't have that, then you can the default rate will be applied as your cost rate. So currency, you can select whatever you want, but you can only have one currency per a Tempo project. So, and I'm going to click create. So once you do that, Cost Tracker actually calculates the labor costs for you, which is pretty great. And I always like seeing this fill in. So these are created by the time that's logged to the issue multiplied by the cost rates for the team members. And as you see, this nice blue slope here is my labor costs. On the right, is because I have Planner installed and there's time planned on the issues in this Jira filter, I see the plan time here too. So this is the projected labor costs. Um, all the issues are down here. So if you have a lot of issues, it can be a lot of data. So to help you with that, you can group the data. You can create your own groups for anything like say department or whatever, but I like to create by group by epics, which is very quick. And right away, as you see all the data rolled up from all the issues in that epic. So it gives you a quick way to get a lot of information. So finally, the timeline is automatically generated by Cost Tracker, which is great. So it goes from the very first time that's logged to any of the issues in my JQL, all the way to the probably present date. And because I have plan time, it also shows up right to the end of December here. So that's automatically generated for you. But if you want to change that, say you want to focus in, it's a long project and you want to focus in on, say, just a month or something like that, you go to configuration, and here's all my general project configuration. I can change my time frame to say just I want to look at the month of August, apply that. So if I go back to the scope tab, you'll see it just shows the data for only that month. So that's kind of handy to be able to do that. But I'm going to just revert to my calculated time frame and also finish setting up here. So by default, your status is in planning, but I'm going to change this to in progress. You can't change the project type, so make sure that that's correct from the beginning. You can change the currency here, but again, you can only use one currency for the whole project. And the budget, you can do a single budget for if you want, but I'm also going to create budget milestones. So these are handy, like maybe in a longer project. So you want to have per quarter or per month or whatever, you know what your financial you have certain things that you're aiming towards for in smaller periods than a very final budget. So I'm going to put 160K, and that's going to be end of Q3. That was that one. And I will add the final budget milestone for December. And just to note that these are cumulative, so you need to start with your lowest earliest date or lowest number first and then work your way up. So 225K is going to be my final budget here that I'm aiming towards. We are doing revenue tracking, so I want to track my billable hours. And as you see, billable rates, billing rates showed up when I did that. So these are all hidden unless you're tracking revenue, so you can kind of ignore it uh, if you don't want. Project time approval, if you want your project managers to approve the time. I'm not going to get into that too much right now, but it does bring up this tab. So the project manager can look at the hours that were spent each time period and then make sure that they're okay. Tags, I use these for identifying and filtering my projects. So for example, I've got a couple of projects that are for lunar industries, so I'm going to add that tag. And one thing to note too, this is the only place where you can delete a project. So good to know where that is. So now on to the members and roles. This is an important thing to actually set up because this determines your labor costs, which is a big part of your project. So here we have the team members, and this is another nice thing with Cost Tracker. It automatically uses team members for whoever's logged time to the issues in your JQL. So in this case, we have 5 members here. Some of them have had team roles assigned from previous Cost Tracker projects, but there's a few who haven't. So I'm going to assign Scott's our resident geologist. And when I do that, you see that I can apply the global rate that I already had set at the beginning of the project. So I'm going to say yes. And same thing with Vivian. I know it's an environmental manager. Yes, I want to apply global rates. So now they're going to be using those rates that I already had set up. You can also individually set rates. And as you see here, this is my default hourly cost rate that I set at the beginning of the project. So if people don't have team roles assigned, they will use the default rate. But I can also say, I don't care about the global cost rates. I want Scott here to have even more money. So I'm going to say, I want him to have $90. And I can even say, I know that starting January 1st, rates are going to go up. So that cost rate is going to kick in at $100 on January 1st. So I can set up that for all of my team members. And I can do that at the global level too, which is great. So that's all cool, but I want to make sure that everybody's using global rates, so I will say yes to that. And just so you know, when you do that, if you've set up special rates over here, they're going to be ignored. They won't be deleted, but they will be ignored. So if I say yes, then all of my team members are now using global rates. And as you notice, Eric here has a sustainability consultant, but he doesn't have, there's not a global cost rate defined for that role. So he's picking up this hourly default rate. So that's also why you need to set a few things. Because they're billing their time, I'm going to go to the billing rates, and it uses the global billing rates by default. And as you see, per Eric here doesn't have any money for his billing. So I can set a default billing rate. And then you see he picks that up. So one quick thing too is there's a team tab here. So it gives you a quick overview about what each team role, how much their labor costs on each thing, and a breakdown per team member of all this information. So it's good to know that's there. So finally, let's go to expenses, which are another important part of your project. I'm going to add an expense, and this one is important to productivity. So it'll pay for itself, trust me. So categories, I've already created these categories here, but you can just literally start typing and create a new category right in this box. These are not associated to any Tempo accounts, but I'm going to say the date that we bought this was June 30th at the beginning, and I'll click that add expense. So now this will be part of my project costs. And you can also do recurring. I'll say to go along with that espresso maker or coffee beans, of course. And that's going to be $500. And I'm going to start it the day we bought the coffee maker. And this is going to be a recurring cost. So it's going to happen every month, 30th day of the month. And I'm going to say after 7 times, or you can give a date there. And then I see that it goes right to the end of December. So these are all things, expenses that have happened already. And then these two are going to be upcoming expenses. So they're grayed out right now. So I've got pretty much everything set up that I want. And now the fun part is I can look at the overview. I love the way that that fills in. So here we have, you can see our budget here in the orange lines. And as I said, these are the 2 milestones that I have set up. The total cost is the 2 blue slopes. The dark blue is the labor cost and the light blue are our expenses. And the purple line here is our revenue. And as you see, these are all the projected costs and revenues. So you can see that if you have plan time also set up. Another great thing about the overview is that you have this panel here that shows you your KPIs or your key performance indicators, your profit margin, and then your schedule, scope, and cost. Scope is just the number of issues in your filter that have been completed or resolved. And if I was tracking CapEx or OpEx in timesheets, the data would show up here. So that is almost it. Finally, because this is such an awesome project, I want to share it with others. So you go back into configuration, click sharing, and I'm going to add David, who is our resident director. So just so you know, David has to also have the Tempo cost tracker access permission. And now he has permission. I could even make him project owner if I want to hand over the project to him. Only one person can be the owner at a time. I could also remove access from him, but I think it'll be best if I keep it. So that is an important thing with sharing, because only you as a project owner can see what's in a project unless you share it. So finally, for those who maybe you don't want to share or can't share with in the product, you can export the data. So if I go to scope here, I can export the scope labor costs or plan labor costs to CSV. So the scope is really data per issue, labor costs is per work log, and plan labor costs is also per plan time. So you can do all of that and more. So that's pretty much it for creating a cost tracker project. I know that was a lot to handle, but that's kind of the main thing. And once you get that down, and once you have two or more projects, you can create a portfolio, which is what most people are really after. So this helps you get insight, a portfolio helps you get insights into whatever business objective that you have with all the aggregated data from multiple projects. For example, we're going to be looking at grouping all the contracts that we have with Lunar Industries. A portfolio is just like a project. It's just a container for all the data. So it's easy to set up pretty quickly. It helps you obviously get insights into whole portfolio health, how it's performing based on an aggregated budget, cost, revenue, and scope of all the projects in your portfolio. You can see a timeline of all the projects too, so you can identify any gaps or overlaps, see what's going on, what's coming up. And you can also share a portfolio as you do with projects. And it really is based on the projects that you have already shared with others or projects that have been shared with you. So let's go back. And this is actually pretty quick to show. So I'm almost finished here. So I'm going to build a portfolio of the projects that I'm going to go back to the page here that we have with Lunar Industries. So you can see on this page, you have all the different information. I can sort by different aspects. And one thing, I think you remember I created this Lunar Industries tag. So I can filter by tags. And I will filter to find all my Lunar Industry projects, just so I know these are the three ones that I'm going to create in my portfolio. So if I go to Portfolios tab here, these are ones that I already have in my instance. I just literally create portfolio, call this Lunar Industries, add the three projects that I have, the lunar ones, go back, and I can add a description and a color tag. I do like green, and create portfolio. So right away, you see the information, you see the performance breakdown of budget and cost, the aggregated budget and cost. You see the whole total number of team members and the total effort in hours of all three of these projects. And you can see all the data here. Nice little thing is timeline. So I want to include the completed projects. So here you see we did this contract last year. This is the current one. This red line is the current date. And this is a future project that we're setting up with Lunar Industries. So you can easily see there's a bit of gap there. There might be overlap there. It just really helps you to quickly visualize what's going on. So finally, this is also great that I'm going to share this. And basically sharing a portfolio you really have to have your project sharing set up first because that's what it's going to be using. To share it, you literally say, yes, I want to share it. But all the project managers, so if their projects are part of this portfolio, they'll be able to see it. And only the projects that I have shared with others, they will only be able to see those too. So it's really based on your Tempo project sharing. So I say yes, now I know it's shared. And that is pretty much it. So I'm going to go back to this. So yeah, that is it. As you see, it's pretty simple to do and it gives you lots of great aggregated data. And now I'm going to pass things on to Catherine, who will give you more insights into the relatively new forecasting feature. Take it away, Catherine.
Thank you, Edna. So there's clearly tons of cost tracker features that make it easier to view, track, and report on the financial health of your projects and portfolios. But today I'll be demoing a recent product update, a highly requested one, which is the availability of forecasting and cost tracker through an integration with Planner. This new feature lets you use plan time data from Planner to accurately predict project costs and revenues. So if you are billing clients, this feature is for you. So you're all likely familiar with timesheets, which is Tempo's time tracking tool. Here we have a report that shows a Jira project with users who have already logged time on issues in that project. Then we have Planner, which is Tempo's resource management tool. It really helps simplify team capacity and resource planning. And here we can see plans for certain users until the end of the year. And these plans could be on epics, on user stories. It really depends what you are planning on. So we've got work logs from timesheets and plans from Planner that we can use in Cost Tracker. We can access Cost Tracker by clicking on that icon in the sidebar. And I've already got some projects in here, but let's create one from scratch by clicking on Create Tempo Project. So a cost tracker project lets you track a certain scope, as Edna walked us through, and that's defined through a Jira filter. Here I'll be choosing an existing one for the project I mentioned. I will stick with monetary based. I will enter a default hourly rate of 50, stick with the current currency, and press create. So let's give it a few seconds, but right off the bat, we'll already be able to see valuable information, again, gathered from those work logs from timesheets and plans from Planner. So first off, we've got top level labor and projected labor cost metrics up top. We see the associated scope chart, as well as the associated tasks within the scope of that project here on the bottom. But we also see the calculated time frame on the top left, and that's something I didn't calculate myself. Again, it's all based on the work logs and plans. Same with the team tab. So there you'll see a list of users who have log time or planned time associated with them, again within the scope associated with this project. Let's quickly go to the configuration tab, because yeah, maybe you have a defined time frame. Here you can just override what was calculated with whatever it is. I'll choose November 1st to December 31st. Let's call it a 2-month project. And I'll also specify a budget here of 10,000. Now, if I navigate back to the Overview tab, again, we'll see new high-level metrics up top, budget, for example. We'll see that the time frame then ends at the end of the year, as I've defined. The orange line shows the budget. The blue region is all costs. And today's date is indicated by this vertical blue line. And it looks like things are looking good today. So everything to the left of this line is work logs, to which we apply cost rates as defined in your configuration. And everything to the right is plans, to which we apply cost rates, again, as defined in your configuration. And that gets added to the trend actual cost, which generates this projection. So here we can clearly see when we will go over budget, which is right around November 30th. And that is if we don't do anything about it. So seeing this is super valuable as that signals a call to action for you or your project managers to adjust the plans, request more budget, whatever it may be. So if you're billing clients, then you also likely want to track revenue. You can do so by, again, going to the configuration tab and enabling revenue tracking over here. And as Edna demoed earlier, you can apply different sets of billing rates, similar to cost rates. So now when we go back to the scope tab, we'll see additional metrics like revenue and projected revenue up top. And we'll also see the revenue line, which is the purple line. To the left is actual revenue based on work logs and the billing rates. And the dashed purple line to the right is the projected revenue based on plans and future billing rates for those people. We can also see extra information over here on the bottom, extra columns like remaining cost, remaining time, and remaining revenue. One thing to re-mention, from this scope tab, you can access even more information. Again, Edna already walked us through the options, but you can always export scope, labor costs, and planned labor costs to CSV. Now I'm going to show you two projects that have more data in them with scenarios that you're likely to run into. So let's go to my list of projects and let's start with a SAD cost tracker project. Edna walked us through expenses earlier, and this is a cost tracker feature that lets you enter non-labor expenses like espresso makers, coffee beans, equipment, or whatever it may be. And it shows up as this light blue region in the chart. And just looking at this, we can clearly see at which point in time, based on everything, current costs, current billing rates, this project is projected to go over budget. That's right around December 22nd, it looks like. So again, if we don't do anything about it, that's how it's going to be. But this is, again, a call to action to make the right changes in time, hopefully before the holidays. If everything looks healthy, then your overview might look like this, where it's clear that costs are well within the budget and the revenue line is looking excellent. So all signs point to this project being quite profitable. One last thing I wanted to cover is actually a sneak peek of an upcoming new feature, which will get you even more value out of the information already available at the project and portfolio levels. We are introducing cost and revenue reports to Cost Tracker, which you can access via this new Reports tab. And here you'll be able to report on any project and portfolio. So let me create a new report. I'll just choose one project. You can drill down any time period and choose a report type. So these are the 4 new reports we're releasing. I'll choose planned cost for this example. You can also filter by role, account category, and break it down by week, month, quarter. I'll choose month in this example. So here I'll be looking at planned costs broken down by month, and I will see the role, the username, the cost rate, planned effort, and the planned costs associated in this report. It's in development, but it will soon be in the product, so stay tuned. This concludes the demo bit, but this is actually a great segue to the next topic in this presentation, which is the cost tracker roadmap. We have a cost tracker and Structure integration underway. So in case you haven't heard, Structure is a separate Tempo product. It's a project portfolio management tool that lets you manage all your projects, teams, your entire portfolio in one view with any fields you need. Also using any Jira issue hierarchy that you may need. And with this integration, Cost Tracker users can use any issue hierarchy or structure to define the Cost Tracker project scope. So that will enable you to visualize costs associated with any structure, whether that's just a list of epics or stories, whole product lines, or the whole portfolio, whatever you need. I already covered cost and revenue reports, so You'll find those 4 new reports in Cost Tracker very soon. And finally, we're also working on automatically syncing new issues in Cost Tracker projects. Again, another highly upvoted feature request, and it will certainly be a huge time saver for all. We also want to leave you with 3 important links. You can always find our public roadmap at tempo.io/roadmap. If you have any product ideas or improvements that you didn't see covered today, please submit them or upvote existing ones at ideas.tempo.io. And lastly, all features mentioned today will go through Tempo Lab, our early access program. So we invite you to join, as your feedback really does help us shape the future of our features and products. And that wraps it up for me. Thank you for watching and listening. Over to you, Connor.
All right. Thank you so much, Edna and Catherine. So lots of questions are being answered in the Q&A feature. We do still have some questions that we'd like to answer live, though. Catherine, this could probably be for you. What do I need to get started with Cost Tracker?
Yes, so again, as Edna mentioned, Cost Tracker currently does need or requires a timesheets license. But to get started, all you need to do is go to the Atlassian Marketplace and get those free trials started. I did demo the forecasting feature, which uses planned time data from Planner. That is a separate tool. So if you want the full suite of like goodies, feature set, please, then I recommend highly to give Timesheets, Planner, and Cost Tracker a try.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. There is a question about, maybe this can be for you, Marc-Andre, question about creating projects from scratch in Cost Tracker. Would you be able to enlighten us a little bit there?
Yes. So currently, the only way that you have to define your scope of a project, so essentially selecting a set of tasks to associate to a project, is through filters, so Jira filters. We are planning in 2024, most likely in the first part of the next year, to introduce ways to make that easier. So essentially being able to select a project, a Jira project, as a scope or Tempo account, Epics, etc. So exactly which entities will support is still to be defined, but just to let you know, this is coming later.
Perfect. Thank you, Marc-Andre. Another question. So do you plan to enable the connection of a Cost Tracker project or account with documentation? So, for example, Confluence page link, OneDrive link, etc.
If the question is about gadgets, I'm not entirely sure about this question, but if it's about showing Cost Tracker information through gadgets inside the Confluence page, for instance, this is not currently in the roadmap, so that could be something to suggest through our idea portal. So I don't know if it would be possible to communicate you the URL where to post ideas. So if you have some functionality that you would like to see implemented in the product, one way to propose that is through the idea portal, and where people can vote on other people's ideas as well.
Another question, is there a rate conversion feature in Cost Tracker?
Again, something that's on our radar for sure. So to be supported later. So exchange rates, to be able to configure those and somewhere in the global settings, and then to be able to use those conversion rates whenever mixed currencies are found. So for instance, in portfolios or in the upcoming cost and revenue report. So for sure, that's on our radar for later.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Catherine, maybe this will be a question for you. So is Cost Tracker just budgets ported to cloud?
The answer is no. They're completely separate products. You will find similarities, of course, but the general progress there is we have built upon budgets on cloud. So yeah, the short answer is no, they're separate products, but they tackle the same challenge of cost tracking and management.
Thank you. Another question here. Maybe Edna, you can enlighten us here. So can you have multiple currencies in the same project?
No. As I showed at the beginning when I was creating a Tempo project, you can only have one currency for the whole project. That includes your labor cost rates and also expenses. But what you could do if you need multiple currencies is you can create a portfolio, and each project within that portfolio can have a different currency. So that's one way of tackling that. And I don't know, Marc-Andre, if you want to address anything that's coming up. I know it seems like you mentioned something about tackling currency conversions.
Yes, essentially that's going to be to enable us to mix currencies together when we're basically summing up amounts together. So indeed, the portfolio feature will allow you to group projects together. Projects can each have different currencies. But if you want to have the totals calculated, that's going to later require currency conversion functionality, which is not implemented yet.
Right. Thanks both for that. And then another question for you. Can you add other types of revenue to your project?
No, right now, and again, Marc-Andre can answer what's coming up, but right now, you can only track revenue that's coming from billable hours that you have tracked in timesheets. So that is basically all for now.
All right. And I do see a similar question that was actually, or maybe not all that similar, but a question that was already answered in the chat, and I'll just reiterate on that. So, how are cost rates and billing rates different? So cost rates are meant for tracking your internal costs. So for example, salaries, and will translate to actual and projected costs in the product. Billing rates are for tracking the money you charge your clients and will translate into actual and projected revenue. Okay, we got another one here. Can we have different rates for different participants in the project? Edna, maybe can you enlighten us there?
Yeah, as I showed, you can each member per project has their own rates set up. Obviously, you can have the global settings, global rates per team role, but each team member per project can actually have their own cost rate. So as I showed, you can set your you can ignore the global rates per team role and set your own, and you can even set like future dates. So yes, each person can have their own cost rates per project.
Perfect. Thanks. Another question. Is there a way to use cost tracker to track labor by hours, but revenue is not based on hours, firm fixed revenue?
So not at this point. So we currently don't have tracking of revenue that is not based on labor, for instance. This is also something that's on our radar. So it could potentially work similarly to expenses today, which is for non-labor costs to be tracked in the product. So we are considering adding a similar feature for revenues as well.
Thank you, Marc-Andre. Okay, another question here, and this may just be a clarification. It may have been answered in previous answers, but I will ask it anyway since it's just been asked. So can I have a different currency for revenue, INR, and cost, the dollar?
No. So at the project level, so a single project can only be associated to one currency. So within a project, you're going to see all costs and revenues in the same currency. Though, as Edna was pointing out before, it is possible to create multiple projects, each with their own currency, and then collect them into a portfolio, which could effectively, or possibly address your use case.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, a few more minutes here. Let's see if we can get one or two more questions answered. So, will the cost tracker features reports will the cost tracker features reports will be applied by default to existing projects? So, assuming Timesheet and Planner exist, or any configuration or migrations to be done?
For cost tracker, if you have Timesheet and Planner installed, you don't need to do extra migrations. The data will be pulled in directly and be recognized by cost tracker, if that's what you mean. You don't need to do anything extra. Just by installing cost tracker, you will see both data work logs from Timesheet and planned hours from Planner.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan, for that clarification. That's awesome. All right, everyone, we only have a few minutes, so we're going to start wrapping things up. So I do want to mention again that these slides will be shared with you after the webinar, as well as the recording of the webinar. There's already been quite a few links shared, links in the slide deck that we've referred to, but there's a lot more here. So we've added a list of resources to continue your learning past this webinar, such as articles from the Help Center. There are some quick videos, as well as a recording of a very recent webinar, actually, on forecasting using other Tempo products with Cost Tracker. So, of course, similar to what Catherine was demoing there with forecasting, but the whole webinar was about forecasting. So if you want to watch, a longer recording of that, definitely check that out. And also this was already included in a previous slide, but we included it here again. So we've included a link to join Tempo Lab. So that is our early access program where you can help shape Tempo products. We've also included our link to our events page. So make sure to bookmark this so you can stay in the know on upcoming sessions, such as optimize your ITSM solution. So join this webinar to learn from ITSM experts, ITSM being Information Technology Service Management, experts at Tempo and Cprime on how to supercharge your IT service management with Tempo's advanced suite of tools for Jira and Confluence. So structure, timesheets, cost tracker / budgets, planner, and custom charts. And that will bring us to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for your attendance and participation. We hope to see you all again soon. Take care.